Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm Ellen Futter, President of the American Museum of Natural History, and on behalf of our trustees, scientists, educators, entire staff, and the approximately 5 million people a year who come to the museum annually seeking inspiration, education, and fun, I am delighted to welcome you here today, especially those of you who have been introduced to this museum and others for the first time through ID NYC. I am extremely proud that to date this museum has issued almost 6,000 memberships as part of ID NYC. We deeply appreciate the role that ID NYC plays in helping to make the museum even more broadly accessible and effective in our efforts to enhance the public understanding of science, the world, and the people around us. And of course, I am especially pleased to welcome Mayor Bill de Blasio, who championed this groundbreaking program, as well as Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Borough President Gail Brewer, Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer, and Commissioners Tom Finkelpearl, our Commissioner of Cultural Affairs, Nisha Agarwal, Lori Sutton. And I'm pleased to welcome as well many of my colleagues from the cultural institutions around New York. But today it is my particular pleasure to introduce the 109th Mayor of the City of New York, Bill de Blasio, and to thank him for his support of New York City's cultural and educational institutions and for his vision, not only in creating ID NYC, but in designing it in such a way that it truly serves as a passport to all that this great city has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor de Blasio.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Ellen, you have a lot to be proud of. You have led this institution brilliantly now for more than 20 years, and millions upon millions of people have come through these doors, and it is, and has been for a long time, one of the great icons of the city, and only gets better. Now, I have to tell you, Ellen, I mentioned this story to you, that Dante came here a few months ago with me and his cousin Tom, who had just moved to New York City, and Dante gave Tom a very serious lecture about the fact he had never been to the Museum of Natural History before, and Dante was very upset at the notion of anyone who lives in New York City and has not been to the Museum of Natural History. So in our family, there's a reverence for this wonderful place and what it means for all of us, and we're proud to be here, and we thank you also for the extraordinary leadership that this museum has played in the ID NYC program, one of the most enthusiastic participants. This is a great day to celebrate what ID NYC has achieved. It is now by far the nation's most ambitious municipal ID program, launched just 6 months ago and having extraordinary results already. There was tremendous energy in the City Council to achieve this program. Speaker Mark Viverito, who you'll hear from in a moment, and the Council were not just partners, but really driving the speed with which we got this done. And I have to tell you, this is another example of what can be done if we have the kind of ambition to serve people of this city directly and completely. You'll remember the original projections as to how far this effort could reach. Well, it has gone beyond every prediction and is reaching now an extraordinary number of people. And it's so important because of all the ways that ID NYC benefit people, beginning with those who felt left out in our society, who felt unrecognized, disrespected, in fact, literally in the shadows of our city. They now have a chance to belong further through ID NYC. There are so many reasons it helps. It helps recognize all of our people, regardless of gender identity, regardless of immigration status, regardless of economic status. And that is the reason that after 6 months, just 6 months, we are pleased to announce today that over 400,000 New Yorkers now have an ID NYC in their hands. And people are proud of it. People like to show it off. I like to show it off. Anyone up here want to show off their ID NYC? Who's got it?
Yeah.
Reach if you got it.
I love my
It is something that makes people proud. And of course, as New Yorkers, we're always proud to say where we came from. But this is an ID card that does so much for so many people, and that's why people keep it with them wherever they go. Don't leave home without it. Now, one of the great things, and part of the reason we're here, is what this ID card means in terms of the ability of all New Yorkers to actually access the riches of this city, and most especially our cultural institutions. As a result of this program already, over 30,000 cultural institution memberships have been achieved. Just in 6 months, 30,000 more memberships in our cultural institutions, 6,000 of which are right here at the American Museum of Natural History. Think about it. It means for so many people who have not felt that they could have access to these institutions, it's a whole new reality for them and their families. And we are very, very proud of the fact we hear these wonderful stories of families going to a museum for the very first time, or a concert, or a botanical garden. We're also thrilled to say that this excellent program has won a lot of attention around the country, and a lot of our friends all over the nation are working on their own approaches. Now, at least 20 other major cities and counties across the nation, including Chicago, Newark, and Hartford, are pursuing similar programs. There's a lot to like about what's happened. A lot of people deserve credit. I want to thank some of the members of my administration who worked so hard, not just to start ID NYC, but to keep perfecting it. And they're literally working month by month to make it better all the time. Let's thank our Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs, Nisha Agarwal, our Commissioner of Cultural Affairs, Tom Finkelpearl. He's got his cheering section here. And our Commissioner of Veteran Affairs, Lori Sutton, General Lori Sutton. You know, as we all embarked on this journey to achieve this, I know my colleagues in the Council feel this deeply. We started to realize just how much it meant to people to have an ID who hadn't had it. In modern society, so much depends on having an ID. You literally can't get into a government building or a hospital or a school without it in many instances. Obviously, you can't sign a lease without ID. You can't get a bank account. And you can't interact properly with law enforcement. We learned in the process of doing this just how much impact it would have, and on so many levels simultaneously. And there's hundreds of thousands of people for whom this was the first chance to get an ID card. And it also speaks to our values, because it speaks to inclusion and what we as New Yorkers believe in a society for all. These cards are held by every kind of New Yorker. I want to give you some examples, people standing with us today. Natasha Lee, 20 years old, from the beautiful island of Jamaica, used her ID to open her first bank account at Amalgamated Bank and to cash her first check. Congratulations. Ori Martinez, for the first time, has an ID that represents her name and her gender for the very first time. Congratulations. Here's a story of a great New Yorker right here. Private Luke Gaspare, 91 years old, 91 years young, may I say. World War II veteran. Now, for those of you who are Mets fans and you've been to Citi Field, you may see Luke at his post as an usher. How many years have you been doing it, Luke?
52 years.
52 years. First at Shea Stadium, now at Citi Field. And Luke, obviously he's proud of being a veteran. He's showing us that now. But he signed up for the ID on his birthday, and part of why he liked it was because it has a veteran's designation on it. And this is something General Sutton worked hard to make sure was included, because it's amazing. There are veterans all over this city who do not have a form of ID that recognizes their service to our nation. and that gives them the maximum opportunity to achieve the benefits they deserve as veterans. So this is an important piece of what's happening now with IDNYC. More and more we're going to use it as a tool to get veterans the recognition they deserve and more of the benefits and opportunities they deserve. Let's thank Luke for all he's done for this country and for the Mets. And finally, Maria Carmen Salvador. You know, as I mentioned, parents are used to, when they get to the door of their school their child goes to, they're used to having to take out their ID and fill out the book before they can go in. Well, Maria didn't have an ID, so she didn't feel she could go into her child's school. She got the ID finally. She felt comfortable going to the school, and for the first time she was able to vote in a PTA election at her child's school. These are little things, but they really add up in people's lives. And Maria brought her family here to this museum for the very first time because the ID allowed her to get that membership. We're going to hear from her in a moment. These are 4 stories, 4 New Yorkers that represent the beauty and the diversity of our city. 4 out of over 400,000 now who are benefiting. Just again to remind you, IDNYC, accepted by all city agencies, recognized by all city agencies, including the NYPD. Accepted at dozens of financial institutions. I mentioned Amalgamated Bank, which has been very active with us in making sure that this program reached as many people as possible. Free memberships. Did I mention they're free? Free memberships at 33 great cultural institutions in this city. Access to all of the city library systems, meaning if you opt in with your IDNYC, you automatically also have a library card at any of the systems, and you can start taking advantage of the resources of those systems. And other benefits that can make a big difference, prescription drug discounts and other discounts through the partnership with the city's Big Apple prescription program. And now, it's easier than ever to get IDNYC. We've quadrupled the number of enrollment centers. Every borough has appointments available this week. So if anyone here wants an ID, hasn't gotten it yet, or you know anyone who wants one, they can get an appointment literally this week. Call, if you need information on where to go, call 311 or visit the nyc.gov, visit our website, nyc.gov/IDNYC to find an enrollment center near you and to sign up. And once you have signed up, the card is sent to you within 2 weeks. It just gets better all the time. So there's a very nice phrase here in my remarks. I'm going to hold this up again as I say it. This is a pocket-sized expression of a big and powerful message. This is a city for everyone. That's the beauty of IDNYC. Before I call up the speaker and my other colleagues in government, just a few sentences en español. La ciudad de Nueva York ha sido siempre un lugar para todos. Y todas las personas que viven aquí deben ser reconocidas y respetadas como neoyorquinas. Por eso, creamos IDNYC. Más de 400,000 neoyorquinos ya tienen su IDNYC, incluyendo muchos que antes no tienen ninguna identificación y pueden beneficiarse de todo lo que la ciudad ofrece. Si aún no se ha sacado su IDNYC, llame al 311 y haga una cita hoy. With that, I want to thank the Speaker and the City Council again for the energetic effort that they brought to this. I remember the day in front of the Brooklyn Public Library when we announced the beginning of this, and it has been a great journey together. And it's happening on a bigger scale than we ever could have imagined. Speaker of the City Council, Melissa Mark Viverito.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It really is an exciting day. Ellen, thank you for your leadership. This is an incredible institution, and there's so much more in store in the next phase, and I'm looking forward to that being fulfilled, as I know my other colleagues in government. And I came in, and I didn't realize we were doing it here, and I started laughing because I remember the story, if I'm correct, and Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if you know, that this whale needed a little bit of plastic surgery because it was anatomically incorrect. Not that the average person would have known, but being this a museum and a scientific institution, obviously that had to be rectified right away. So glad that it did. But so we're really,
Controversy.
So it really is a good morning for the reasons that the mayor cited with regards to this ID, and 400,000 New Yorkers that now have this ID that really affirms them as New Yorkers, that fully integrates them into all aspects of civic life here in the city. It really is an incredible moment that I am very proud of and glad to be here with not only our majority leader and Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer, he's also chair of our Cultural Affairs Committee. You know, New York has always been a leader in helping our most vulnerable. We're a city that has welcomed when others have turned their backs. This is what New York City is all about. We are our sisters and brothers keepers. So the success of this program is a testament to our continued commitment to helping everyone in New York City, and we mean everyone. If you're a trans person looking for an ID that allows you to self-identify, this ID is for you. If you're a senior, this ID is for you. Or if you're an undocumented New Yorker, this is an ID for you. This is an ID for every single New Yorker, and definitely encourage everyone that qualifies to get one. The contrast between what's happening in New York City and Washington could not be clearer, and this is just one example. We've passed a municipal ID card open to all. We have a council initiative funding lawyers for all unaccompanied minors, and that's why we've passed legislation limiting our cooperation with ICE. We will continue to lead by passing sane, sensible pieces of legislation like ID NYC that makes our city more fair and just for all. And we won't be intimidated by Republicans in Washington who continue to put their heads in the sand in the face of reality. Just last week, the Republican Senate voted to cut federal funding for cities like New York, who have been forced to pick up the slack for their failures. Make no mistake, it's Republicans in Washington who are blocking sensible immigration reforms the entire country believes in, and the support is growing. The Senate legislation against so-called sanctuary cities is nothing more than another Republican attempt to demonize and criminalize immigrants. It would have a profound chilling effect, and I'm happy the president has said he would veto it. So while Republicans allow their immigration policies to be led by their presidential frontrunner, Donald Trump, here in New York City, we will continue to keep people safe while also bringing sanity to our immigration system. So New York has led, and New York will continue to lead. And the city's ID NYC program reflects our commitment to ensuring that all New Yorkers feel that they're a part of this city. And the examples and the stories of those that we will hear from validate that. When we have people that are engaged, that feel validated, to bring them out of the shadows, we have a stronger city. And that really is at core the essence. And really encouraging young people and families to go to our cultural institutions like this one really helps expand their horizons and the educational opportunities for those children. So I'm really happy to be here, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for holding this event, and look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you. We want some español.
Que este es un gran día que estamos aquí todos presentes para reconocer y seguir reconociendo el impacto de este programa de la identificación municipal. Con más de 400,000 neoyorquinos que se han inscrito, vamos a seguir apoyando esta medida y esperamos que la gente siga inscribiéndose. Esto valida a toda persona que vive en Nueva York y reconoce las contribuciones que hacemos todos los días. Así que mientras Washington no hace su trabajo y los republicanos siguen criminalizando a todos los inmigrantes, esta tarjeta municipal, esta carnet municipal es valida las contribuciones de todos los neoyorquinos. Así que es un día de mucha alegría, vamos a seguir mencionándolo y espero que toda persona que no se haya inscrito, por favor lo haga llamando al 311. Gracias.
The idea of linking ID NYC to cultural institution memberships was a very powerful one. And once the idea was put into play, it had to be achieved. and one of the most enthusiastic backers of the idea, who did a lot to help it come to fruition, is the chair of the Council Cultural Affairs Committee, Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I particularly want to thank Commissioner Tom Finkelpearl of the Department of Cultural Affairs, who I think is doing an amazing job and who did an amazing job on this particular issue.
Queen's bias coming through again.
I am very much proud that Tom Finkelpearl was the director of the Queen's Museum before he became the commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs. I also want to thank all the commissioners who are here for their work. This is a great victory for the City of New York and this administration, but I particularly want to single out our speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, who in her brief remarks both established and cleared up the whale controversy and leveled anti-immigrant Republicans in the House of Representatives in the same speech. The same speech. That's talent. And I want to thank our very, very distinguished veteran who is with us to my left. I am a lifelong Mets fan. I was at the game on Saturday, so thank you for your service to our country and for your service to the New York Mets, which is very brave indeed. Thank you so much. As a Met fan, and I just want to say on behalf of all the members of the City Council who supported this legislation, but not who just supported the legislation, but actually went deep into communities and made sure that people knew that this service was available so that so many New Yorkers could become a part of our extended family. And as the chair of Cultural Affairs and Libraries, I have to single out our public libraries, who are really the entry point, the entry place for so many folks to get their IDNYC cards. The speaker and I were recently at the Flushing Library on Main Street, and the lobby of the Main Street Flushing branch is essentially an IDNYC registration center. The entire lobby was full the day that we went, 5 months after this program started. So thank you to our public libraries. And to all of the cultural institutions group members here. Make no mistake, this would not be as successful a program as it was. I firmly believe that. If our cultural institutions did not come to this battle and did not offer up these free memberships, these annual memberships, which isn't just an enticement for folks to register for this program and get this card, but it is a game changer in terms of those families who are now having access to these amazing, amazing institutions all across the city. I heard very early on this from a family in Sunnyside, Queens. I got an email from a dad who said that he and his wife were signing up. They had 2 kids, and they weren't sure that they had the money to always go to all of these institutions, but he thanked us for doing this because he and his wife were signing up, and they were going to go to as many institutions, as many museums and botanical gardens, science-based institutions as they could for their 2 children in Sunnyside, Queens. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to all of the folks who had a hand in this. And once again, culture and the arts and libraries are indispensable to everything good in the city of New York. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, so much of the success of this effort has been letting people know that this great opportunity exists and reaching out to them. And I think it's fair to say I don't know anyone who knows more about bringing government to the people than the Borough President of Manhattan. She's an expert on this topic. We welcome her, Borough President Gail Brewer.
Well, congratulations to the Speaker and the Mayor and everyone who made this possible, and I can give you a real-life example of why it's helpful. So on Friday, we had our staff retreat at Governor's Island. And those of us who had a municipal ID, we did not have to pay the $2 on the ferry. And all of the 60 or some, as the mayor knows, I have 120 interns, maybe more. They all came, and they are now going to be registering because they had to pay $2 for that ferry, and I did not. But the motto of all of this is that this ID is bringing new opportunities, not just financial, but cultural, libraries, and the organ donation. I'll be honest, I have my license since I'm like 15 years old, 16 years old, and it kept coming, and I memorized the eye test, so they never really got to me. I just kept going for the license. But when it came to the municipal ID, I was able to sign up for the organ donation, which is really important, something I should have done a long time ago with my driver's license. And the fact of the matter is that's another benefit for the society, not just for me, but for the society. So I'm here to say that this municipal ID, and everyone should sign up, has so many benefits. You've heard about some of them. I've given you 2 specific examples. And of course, it helps those who don't have papers and who need an ID for all the other reasons. So congratulations, and get your ID so you don't have to pay the ferry. Go to Governor's Island. Thank you very much.
Now it's time to hear from some of the brave souls who represent us in Albany. And I always thank those who do almost as hard as representing us in Washington, but they've stood up for the city and its needs. And I know each and every one of them believes in this inclusive approach to government. And I thank them for their support of ID NYC. First, State Senator Bill Perkins.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to congratulate the mayor and the speaker and everyone else that's been involved with this tremendous effort. You know, I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in this town, and I used to always sneak in this place, as well as some of the other cultural institutions. And so now I don't have to sneak in anymore. As I can get in for free. And one of the great things about all this is that the city has become so rich with diversity over these years, so rich in terms of so many different parts of the world, so many have been bringing things to our community that we've never had before. And I just wanted to mention this here cookbook that represents the Senegalese community that I represent in Harlem. And there's so many similar such opportunities that we have in this city now that we didn't have before, and so much inclusion that we didn't have before. And this ID, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Speaker, you know, represent that giant step that New Yorkers are now beginning to recognize the importance of differences and how all of us have something to contribute. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Bill. Well, in that vein, Senator, I had one of those New York moments when I first got to spend some time with Assembly Member Luis Sepulveda of the Bronx. And of course, his name is Luis Sepulveda, and he's from the Bronx. And he told me at one point he wanted to introduce me to an important group of his community residents, and forgive me, I assumed they might perhaps be Latino, and of course, he brought me to see the Bangladeshi community of his district. So another only in New York reality and part of what we cherish. Assembly Member Luis Sepulveda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Right from the onset, I want to thank Mayor de Blasio and Speaker Viverito and the City Council for being able to pass this legislation to allow for the IDs. You know, when I first met the mayor when he was running for office, one of the discussions that we had was about some of his policies, but he raised the issue about providing these IDs. And to see it happen and to see the success makes me so proud. And it's really a game changer for many people in our community. First of all, I want to thank the veteran here for the wonderful work that you've done. Luke. But I do want to convince you, or try to convince you, to come over to the Bronx with the Yankees, and we'll work on that.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. How many years? How many years you been there? 52. 52.
Well,
give up, Luis.
Hey, no, he can try.
Let's go, Matt.
But this is a wonderful event, a wonderful day, and you know, we've all spoken about human stories that this has as an impact, and I can tell you that, you know, I have residents. A lot of times, our constituents, our residents, aren't aware of the legislation that we pass, but fortunately, many of them, because I represent such a large immigrant community, specifically a large undocumented immigrant community, many of them have seen me at occasions, at events, in the streets, and have thanked me for this legislation. I try to give some credit. I tell them they have to thank the mayor and the speaker. But I can tell you that some of them have told me how they finally were able to go to a PTA meeting, how finally able to go to a library, how they are finally able to open up a bank account. And more importantly, the mayor mentioned that I have a large Bangladeshi community in my district. And one individual was a victim of a crime. Many people in this community are afraid because those that are undocumented are afraid of what would happen if they report it. And this particular individual said, because I have the New York City ID card, I am in a position to be able to report it and not be fearful what would happen to me afterwards. So these are the small human interest stories that make a world of a difference to people in our community. And so again, I want to thank all those involved, especially the mayor and the speaker, for a wonderful job that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
And quickly, since the mayor's taking lessons in Spanish, I'm working with him on it too.
Okay.
But quiero dar las gracias.
I'm listening.
Quiero dar las gracias al alcalde y a Speaker Viverito por este gran programa que ayuda a muchas personas en nuestra comunidad, personas que por primera vez en su vida han podido participar en programas escolares con sus niños, han podido abrir cuentas bancarias, han podido participar en eventos que nunca pudieron y reportar crímenes que anteriormente tenían temor de ir a la policía a reportarlos. Así que es un gran programa y estamos muy agradecidos en el condado del Bronx de la Zarza, en la ciudad de Nueva York, por este programa y les doy las gracias a todos por establecerlo y hacer un éxito. Que Dios lo bendiga.
Thank you. We have two more speakers, but now I just was doing math in my head, and I have to ask Luke a question here. Luke, at 52 years, suggests you were there the first season at Shea Stadium. Is that correct?
Correct.
You were there the first game at Shea Stadium?
I think it was, I'm not too sure, but I think it was Cincinnati. You know, when
Cincinnati.
you reach 91,
Let's check
the
our.
number is not too good.
I think it's pretty good so you were there at Shea Stadium since the very beginning. Okay.
The gates open up to
Friends in the
public.
media, cover this topic, but then also you better profile Luke because this is a pretty amazing story. Two more speakers, and one of them really, his heart and soul is on these issues because before he was an assembly member, he served in the same capacity that Nisha Agarwal does now as the commissioner for the mayor's office of immigrant affairs, and he did a lot to help immigrants all over this city in that capacity. Now serving the people of Manhattan as an assembly member. Assemblyman Guillermo Linares.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me congratulate you, the Speaker, and the members of the City Council for this wonderful initiative. As a former Immigrant Affairs Commission, I know firsthand how important access to information and services is to all New Yorkers, but particularly for the 500,000 New Yorkers that are undocumented. During my tenure, we introduced policy regarding language access. That was a strong step in helping immigrant New Yorkers. But this effort to really help bring an ID to New Yorkers, not just undocumented, but all New Yorkers after 9/11 becomes critical. But particularly for immigrants, because there is an element that I think is very hard to surpass, and that is the element of fear. And that was probably the most challenging during my time, and is still very much challenging. But when you have access to an ID, it's an official document granted by the City of New York. It goes such a long way in helping immigrants, whether documented or not, but especially if they are undocumented, to approach government, approach the police or any city agencies. I want to commend the commissioner, both commissioners, and also especially the cultural institutions that have helped on this wonderful initiative. Estoy aquí muy agradecido de la iniciativa que se ha tomado en esta ciudad por el alcalde, la portavoz y el Consejo Municipal. Como comisionado de Asuntos Migratorios de la ciudad, anteriormente sé la importancia que tiene tener acceso a información y a servicios para todos los neoyorquinos, pero especialmente el 500,000 que no tienen documentos. Pero hay un elemento muy, muy importante, y quiero decir que acceso a esos servicios y a esa información es también hablar el idioma que habla el neoyorquino que no domina el inglés. Y hay una política en esta ciudad que cuando yo era comisionado se introdujo, pero esta iniciativa va a algo muy importante para todos los neoyorquinos y es muchas veces el temor que tenemos de acercarnos a buscar esa información o ese servicio, sea la policía, sea cualquier agencia. Y esta identificación hace una gran diferencia para aquellos que ya no tienen que temer para acercarse a cualquier agencia de esta ciudad. Quiero felicitar a los comisionados, a todas las instituciones culturales y de nuevo al alcalde, la portavoz y el Consejo Municipal por esta iniciativa. Felicitaciones.
Finally, you heard the mention earlier I made of Maria Carmen Salvador and what she has experienced and what this ID card means to her. You're now going to hear from Maria directly, and Speaker Mark Viverito will translate for her after she speaks. Maria Carmen Salvador. Bienvenida.
Sí, por favor. Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es María Salvador. Yo he vivido aquí en Nueva York por 14 años con mi esposo y mis 2 hijos. Y mis hijos asisten a la escuela de Sunset Park.
My name is Maria. I've lived in the city of New York for 14 years. My husband and I live in Brooklyn with our 2 kids, and they attend school in Sunset Park.
El ID municipal es mi primera identificación aquí en los Estados Unidos y la recibí en el mes de abril. Fue muy fácil y fui tratada muy bien. No me hicieron preguntas sobre mi estatus migratorio.
This ID is my first official identification here in the United States. I received it in April, and the process was very quick. It was easy, and they never asked me my immigration status.
Con este ID recibí membresía del Museo Natural de Historia y espero hacerme miembro de otros museos zoológicos y más lugares donde pueda disfrutar junto a mis 2 hijos. Este sitio me ayuda, esta identificación me ha ayudado a enseñar a mis hijos la importancia de la ciencia, la historia, y por primera vez mi familia tiene grandes oportunidades de acceder al arte, a la música y a la cultura en todo.
So with this ID, I received my membership here to this museum, and I look forward to being a member at other cultural institutions. This location, this museum, has helped me teach my children the importance of science and history. For the first time, my family has the great opportunity of having access to art, science, history, music, all at the same time.
Esta es mi identificación principal que cargo conmigo y me ha ayudado en muchas maneras, y quizás lo más importante es que nos ha ayudado a participar en la escuela de mis hijos. Por primera vez en la escuela de mis hijos en Sunset Park hubo votaciones para PTA y todos los padres pudimos ser incluidos y elegir nuestro PTA con igualdad y respeto.
This is the ID that I carry around. This is the most important ID for me personally, and it has helped me in many different ways. Perhaps the most important way is that it has helped me participate more actively in the education of my children. For the first time, as the mayor had alluded to, she was able to use the ID to really vote in the PTA in the school of my children. And I did not do that alone. A lot of other parents in the community felt part of the process and used their ID in order to vote in an election for the first time.
Mi familia y yo agradecemos al alcalde de Blasio por abrir las puertas de la ciudad de Nueva York para disfrutar todas las oportunidades que nos ofrece esta ciudad, y nos sentimos incluidos como neoyorquinos. El ID municipal protege, y me siento así, protegida por la identidad y nuestra dignidad como parte de esta comunidad. Gracias.
So the ID has made me feel important, that I have an important voice to express, and that I've been actively involved in the election of my children, but also obviously validated by the city, my family. And I thank Mayor de Blasio for opening the doors to the city of New York to us with the use of this ID. We feel very much included as New Yorkers. The ID NYC protects our identity and protects our dignity.
Gracias.
Okay, we are going to do on-topic questions first, then off-topic questions. On-topic questions first. IDNYC. I'm going to give you another chance.
I'm a boy or a girl?
Huh?
Was the whale a boy or a girl?
Yeah, okay.
Ellen, what was the whale a boy or a girl? It was a girl, and it was presented as a boy. The belly button area. Okay.
That actually was an on-topic question. Thank you, Marcia.
A question perhaps for Nisha, but there were concerns about securing the ID and making it, not especially susceptible to fraud. How's that going? Have there been any breaches?
So when we designed the program, we worked very closely with NYPD's intelligence unit and many other experts to design a card that from beginning to end is both protected in the sense that the card itself has many security features to make it hard to duplicate. The process itself of applying has a number of different protections in it, and we have a very significant program integrity unit on the back end to confirm individuals' identities, make sure that people who are getting the card are actually those individuals. We have not had any breaches in terms of technology or data. We've not even had any requests for the data from law enforcement. When the program went into effect, the law makes very clear that identities and private information will be protected to the maximum extent of the law, and that remains the case. The HRA Commissioner, Steve Banks, also issued executive orders to ensure that all of the data is kept safe and confidential. So we're very proud to say that this is a secure card, both for the applicant and for the program.
Stay one more second, just in case. On topic, do that.
Is there a waiting list for the card, and do you physically have to go to the center to get it, or can you get it online?
So there isn't a waiting list for the card. We recommend that people make an appointment, and right now all appointments are scheduled within the next 90 days. And as was mentioned by the mayor, when you go to apply for your card, it will be mailed to you within 2 weeks, sometimes even shorter.
But some appointments are available even more quickly.
And some appointments are available this week in all 5 boroughs, and so we want to really emphasize that message. Thank you.
Go ahead. That you wanted.
Free membership or the free availability. Is that for all time on the card, or when can people take advantage of that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The membership, you mean the cultural membership? It's for the first year. Here, I'll
Yep.
stay nearby. It's for when you get your ID card, for the first year you have your ID card, you can sign up for the cultural memberships. The ID card lasts for 5 years at a stretch. During the first year, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, you can get a membership at a cultural institution. Henry?
Well, that was really my question, but I'll follow it up, which is that because this is such a benefit, and because so many people have mentioned their access to the cultural institutions, is there any plan to extend that 1 year period beyond the 1 year?
Tom also should get in here.
So we're really just 6 months into the first year. We are talking about year 2 actively with cultural institutions, with Nisha, and we'll have something to announce later in the year, but we don't have something to announce today.
Can we just pay $1 for the institutions anyway?
What's that?
Can we pay $1 for?
Yes, but I think the fact is that many people have found having a membership offers a range of opportunities. Why don't you describe that? The difference between showing up once versus having a membership.
So as the borough president said, some of these institutions are in fact free or virtually free. But for example, at BAM Cinemas, you have to pay, and you can get a discount with your card to get 50% off. It depends on the institution. There are also discounts at the stores. So if you become a member, so even an institution like this, which is a voluntary contribution, 6,000 people have already decided it's worth it to become a member for some of those other benefits.
And I'm going to add a point which comes directly from my interview with Tom Finkelpearl when he was an applicant for this job, that a lot of people in the city feel a certain trepidation about going into one of the big famous cultural institutions, and they literally don't know if it's for them. And the ID card is a strong statement that yes, it's for everyone. And once you have the NYC ID, that you can then go and get a membership and be treated like any other member of a cultural institution and use it multiple times and bring your family. So it really is a different mindset. And I think I've heard this from a lot of folks amongst our cultural institutions. It's kind of demystifying access to cultural institutions that previously, for some people, they felt they were only for the elite, but they were never meant to be only for the elite. On topic.
I've been talking to a lot of undocumented immigrants, and while many of them are getting the ID, there's still a lot of them that are afraid. And I was wondering if you could reiterate the invitation to them to lose this fear, and also if you are doing any efforts to convince them that there is no problem in terms of their immigration status.
I'll start and I'll pass to you. Maybe you'd like to do that in Spanish as well, and Nisha can then talk about additional outreach efforts. Now, the whole idea is this is an ID card for everyone. You will not be asked your documentation status. We want to make sure that people are very clear about that. They will not be asked their documentation status. All people who live in the 5 boroughs are welcome to come get this ID. And by the way, the point about the NYPD is very, very important. If you have this ID card, the NYPD understands it, respects it, and they also will not ask your your documentation status.
Queremos reafirmar que la información que recibimos para que la gente se inscriba en la tarjeta es información que es protegida y que no es compartida. Esta tarjeta es de beneficio para todo miembro de nuestra ciudad, si es documentado o no. Y es importante también que los medios y las organizaciones de base nos ayuden en mandar ese mensaje, que es importante, la importancia de tener la identificación, como estaba mencionando María, ¿verdad, María? Con el beneficio que le da a ella y a la familia. Es importante que esa información se llegue a las comunidades, y eso lo hacemos, no solamente la responsabilidad del gobierno, también nosotros estamos dando este servicio, pero necesitamos la ayuda de los medios y la ayuda de las organizaciones de base que trabajan con nuestras comunidades, que saquen esa información a las personas para que ellos entiendan la importancia.
And what I'll add is we have a pretty significant outreach team that at the grassroots level partners with council members' offices, partners with faith and community institutions to really do outreach to the immigrant community. So when people have questions or they're afraid, there's somebody they can directly speak to about that. We also, with Tom Finkelpearl's help, are going to be having an artist in residence who will start very soon, whose mission will be to do extended outreach to the undocumented community and use creative strategies to really reach out to that population.
Okay, on topic. On topic, yes. Right, first. No, closer first. Closer. Did you have one? Okay. Are you from, I'm sorry, you're a journalist?
Yes, I'm a journalist, but I have to tell something to you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate that ID card because I can get a job. So this ID card makes me a person that gets a job in this New York City, okay, in the hospital ambulance. So I wanna give thank you for the mayor because he helps me a lot with just part of my immigrant status. Is that okay? So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you.
Testimonial.
All right. Last call on topic. Okay. Wait. Just hold on a second. Just want to be clear. We'll respect. For any journalists, there's questions from journalists, but it has to be questions, not statements. So if you're a journalist, I'd like to get a question. Okay, then thank you. We have to keep it to members of the media just now, but thank you very, very much. Okay, last call, journalists. Last call on topic. Going once, going twice. Off topic.
Mr. Mayor, last week Governor Cuomo asked that you significantly increase the city's share of MTA funding to above $3 billion. First of all, are you going to meet that commitment of funding? And second of all, did you take the governor's request at face value, or did you think that was political retribution?
Well, let's remember the history very quickly. Last time we got a formal, timely request from the MTA was early on in our budget process, and we specifically met that request. At the very end of our budget process, literally the very final days of the executive budget process, suddenly another request appeared out of nowhere. This, too, has come as a surprise, and my simple response is we welcome more information on the financial commitment that the governor is making in terms of where the state will find the resources and how they're going to commit them, and then we'll be happy to talk about it once we understand the specific proposal.
Take his request to you at face value, or is this?
I'll be in a position to respond better when I see the specifics. We literally don't know where the money is coming from or how it would be paid for or what it means. So, when we see the substance of it, we'll be in a better position to comment.
Last night, a man who has previously been arrested for and charged with leaving the scene of two accidents that hurt pedestrians and other folks in the cars was in another collision, and this time a 19-year-old girl was killed and an 18-year-old girl is in the hospital. He's been charged again, so I was wondering if you could comment on just the nature of like multiple charges for the same offense over and over again, and then how do you kind of reconcile with the Vision Zero efforts with passengers of vehicles, like the two women that were in the car?
Well, I think this is why we have Vision Zero. We have, I think, over the last year and a half, steadily increased the penalties for drivers who have killed people and injured people grievously. We've steadily increased the enforcement. This is something where the council and the mayoralty have worked very, very closely to address what's been a crisis that went unaddressed. I don't know the specifics of this case, but it's obviously a tragedy, and the goal here is to make sure that people who should not be on the road are not on the road. But that's exactly why we've taken such an aggressive approach with Vision Zero. I'd be happy to say more when I know the details of the case.
How do you talk to passengers? Because these two women were with a driver who had been in accidents before. Should people be told, maybe check to see if it's a safe driver that you're with?
Look, I think this is something, is a challenge particularly parents feel, and I've certainly had this conversation with my children, to really be careful who you get in a car with. And that may be because the person is under the influence of a substance or that they're reckless in other ways. So I do think everyone should be very careful. But the first responsibility we in government have is to create laws and to enforce laws that can, as best as possible, stop these tragedies from happening, and that's what we're trying to do with Vision Zero.
Mr. Mayor, there's a major infrastructure announcement happening shortly. It wasn't on your schedule. Are you planning to be there, and if not, why not?
I think from what I've heard of the announcement, I don't have all the details, but certainly the part about trying to rejuvenate the terminals at our airport, something I think is wonderful, and I put out a statement praising the governor and the vice president for that. My understanding is they're doing it in the context of an ABNY event, and that's the kind of event that I go to when I'm speaking, but not obviously as an attendee. But from that, what I know of it so far, I'm impressed by the announcement.
Does that mean that they did not invite you to come to this event?
No, it means that an event like that is the kind of event that I go to when I'm doing exactly what the governor will be doing when I have something to announce.
Sorry about that. May I ask how you and the speaker are doing in terms of personal and professional relationship? If you've had clarifying conversations over the weekend, and how you characterize how you...
Well, I'll start and welcome the speaker, of course, to join in. We've known each other. Did you run in 03 originally or 05? Yes. 03. I have... Win that one. Well, it doesn't always work. I've known the speaker well since she first ran for office, and we have been friends and allies ever since. And we obviously have some very, very similar views of the world, and I think that's part of why we've had such a strong partnership over the last year and a half. So we talk all the time, and I think I'm very proud to say we've gotten a lot done together.
Effective government and effective governance is being able to collaborate and being able to be clear about your positions. And so the mayor and I have a good working relationship, and it's always in the best interest of New York City for that to happen. So I look forward to the work ahead on behalf of the City Council.
Grace?
Just following up on that, earlier this summer you spoke about the difficulties that you've had in your relationship with Governor Cuomo. Then last week we heard the speaker speak out, frustrated with what she was hearing from you. Are there any lessons that you've learned from this incident with the speaker and also in terms of navigating your relationship with the governor about building things that you might need to do to build better working relationships?
Have you heard of the concept of apples and oranges? Again, I'll offer my view. The Speaker and I have worked shoulder to shoulder now for a year and a half and have agreed on the vast majority of issues. It's been a respectful, honest relationship. Clearly, I respect the City Council. I spent 8 years of my life as a member of the City Council. And I understand in all matters before the City Council, they'll make choices about their own agenda. I think in some of the interpretation of the issues, I'm not sure the relay of the information was as clear as it might have been from the media. I'm just not clear about all the details. But I do know when I was asked the question the other day, would you go back to the City Council if needed? My answer was yes, meaning I would go to the City Council knowing the City Council makes their own decision ultimately about whether to engage any proposal. But I think it's been a tremendously productive relationship with the Speaker and with the Council as a whole. And the situation I referred to with the Governor is obviously a very different reality based on different experiences.
Given what happened last week with Uber, this is a two-part question.
Do the first part first.
Do you have fears that other corporations may try similar tactics coming to the city and spending everything that they have or a lot of money to just try and overwhelm you in order to, blitzkrieg for whatever they want? That's the first part. And
Okay, stay there. I am never surprised by any company that thinks they can use their money to achieve their goals. And I am not overawed by it. We made very clear, the Speaker's made clear, I've made clear, that we have an agreement that gives us the information we didn't have before, that gives us the study period we need and the limit on growth we need to address this issue. So I think in the end, the public is very dubious when a large corporation tries to get its way using vast resources. I think that's something that in democracy, a lot of people raise eyebrows about.
do you think, the second part of the question is, would you, given the chance to negotiate this deal all over again or propose regulations all over again, is there anything that you would have done differently, given how it was widely perceived as this entire lobbying effort by Uber was unpleasant for everyone involved, the council members, you, everyone?
Unpleasantness sometimes goes with the job. Again, I think the administration and the council were trying in close coordination to address a very complicated issue. I think regardless of the advertising effort and the lobbying effort, we got to an outcome that's going to allow us to address the issue. And we retain all of our rights as the city government. You want to add?
I mean, just to touch on the issue that you mentioned, all that, that's not the way we work here. And all the money that could be thrown around, whatever the intent was, it's not the way we do public policy in the City Council. And it really wasn't working with the members either. So it's unfortunate, and we really are deliberative. We're going to analyze the issues and arrive at a position that we believe is in the best interest of the city.
Mr. Mayor, on the way here, I encountered a number of homeless people. Some people were begging for money for food. Others were just eating food out of the trash can. And in looking for answers, I'm wondering what's changed. What do you think has changed to bring more people on the streets of the city? And secondly, is there any way you can change the law so that the city can get more help for these people?
Well, first of all, what's changed right now is it's summer. And every summer we see this challenge in one form or fashion. And the other thing that's changed is the economy, and we've talked about this, in a lot of settings. The cost of housing and what's happened to people's household economics. The reason we have such a huge number of people in shelter, not necessarily the people that you're seeing, but the reason we have so many people in shelter is because the cost of living skyrocketed in the city and people didn't have the same economic opportunities they used to. So we're trying to address that with a lot more permanent affordable housing. We're trying to address that with a lot of efforts to raise wages and benefits. You know very well the reality of people, even working people who are in shelter because they can't make ends meet. So some of this is about economics. Some of this is about the reality of the summer months, and that's sadly been true in New York City for many, many years. But another piece of this is about mental health. And we are about to, everyone is aware of the fact that the First Lady is going to bring out a plan that's going to fundamentally reshape how we approach mental health issues in the city amongst all our agencies with a single coordinated strategy. We're also going to do a lot more to address some folks who have mental health challenges and literally can't control themselves, who are a threat to themselves and to others. We're going to be more aggressive about addressing that. So I think the very vignette you gave, and this refers a lot to what Commissioner Bratton has clarified to the people of this city recently, anyone who might be a danger to themselves or to anyone else, we are going to aggressively address, and we're going to find a way to address their needs and make sure they're not on the street. Those who are peacefully sitting on a park bench, or even we've all seen in every neighborhood, there's some people who sit there and ask for spare change but don't bother anyone, they're not aggressive, that's within their constitutional rights. But as you also indicate, some people are so hungry, they're searching for food. Those folks, we try and get to soup kitchens, we try and get to shelter, we try and get to safe havens, and we're expanding our capacity with safe havens, for example, to get more and more people in who have chosen to be on the street, but we're going to try and convince that there's a better approach that takes them off the street.
Change the laws. I mean, these are people who are hungry.
Yeah.
These are people who, it breaks your heart to see them.
I would argue it's a very good question, and I've asked the same question many times. I think in our democracy, there is a thin line, the question of what constitutes the individual's right, for example, to sit on that park bench or beg in front of that store. There's been tremendous consistency that it's not the place of any local government to tell people they can't do it, like any other freedom of speech or assembly. That is a very different question from the thing that I think most New Yorkers are concerned about, and I'm very much concerned about as well. Anyone who's aggressive, anyone, of course, who's violent. There, I think we can do a lot more within the law. And that starts with recognizing that mental health is the single biggest challenge when it comes to anyone who's aggressive or violent. That's rarely a person who is mentally well. Let's be clear. Well, that's what we're about to roll out, some very different approaches that we think will have a much bigger impact. Okay, last.
Mayor, so last week with this, the back and forth over one area where it seemed you and the speaker really seemed to disagree was on whether or not the cap is still on the table going forward. So can we hear from each of you about your feelings on whether or not the cap is still on the table going forward?
Under the laws of our democracy, yes, you can hear from both of us. So I'll begin and say that what I was trying to say, and I'll say it again, is the city government, which unites us all, retains all its rights in this situation. By saying there'll be a 4-month study period, that means exactly what it says. At the end of that study period, if we can resolve issues amicably and create the kind of balance we need, that's great. But nothing says that the city council can't go back and look at that option if they're dissatisfied with what happens at the end of that process.
The study is in the process of getting started and will be completed in the 4 months, and we expect Uber to abide by its agreement to provide us the data that we've been very specific, that we've asked for, and that will help inform and produce a better study. And so we will continue to have conversations internally as a council and explore all options, but we can't figure that all out until we have the studies and evaluation about, one, the issue of congestion is one aspect of it, but the industry as a whole and the rapid growth of it. So we're looking to get that information and be deliberative about it, and then explore whatever options are then available or needed.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Love